So are you ready to feel sexually free, liberated, empowered, and have I got the person for you? So my next guest is a married mum of 3. She tells me it's her wedding anniversary today. So I do hope you're going back to a bunch of flowers. She's a tech entrepreneur. She's a female entrepreneur empowerment champion, Emma Sayle, who's on a mission to sexually empower women by making their sexual desires, fantasies, and curiosities a reality with her Killing Kittens online club and her real-life parties. So here to share what she's learnt, what women need, and what women want, Emma is somewhat of an expert of desire in midlife. So please join me in welcoming Emma to chat about her groundbreaking business, what she's learnt in her 20 years in business, from how to communicate desire in a long-term relationship to body confidence, and how to ignite sex lives with long-term partners and ramp up that all-important sexual energy. Please join me in welcoming Emma. I'll have you. Yeah. So, can I just say, I first heard Emma talk, must have been about 5-6 years ago, so before lockdown. And I have been dying to get you to come and talk at one of these things ever since. Yeah. So it is just, I'm thrilled to bits to have you here today. So, so first of all, a very big personal thank you to you for taking time out of your day. I know you are incredibly busy running an amazing business. So to me, the question I want to start is this one, and I think is what everybody really wants to know.
Why?
Is, well, yeah, why? I mean, you're the daughter of a colonel in the British Army. You went to school with Kate Middleton, and every time I read about you in the Daily Mail, it's, friend of... Kate's mate. So more about that later. But why, how did you have the idea for Killing Kittens? And I think also, more importantly, the courage to launch it. I mean, it's incredible. And I think the curiosity in the room is great. So, how did you have that idea to launch this and take on a man's world?
It wasn't like it was a sudden light bulb moment. It was this fire in me that my parents say I've been a pain in the arse since I could crawl. And, someone say, go right, I'd go, no, fuck you, I'm going left. And that it was always that, well, and I was a real tomboy, and it was sort of, well, if boys can do it, why can't we do it? And everything was, and a military dad and grew up in the Middle East, and everything, I think this really angry fire was lit really early days of, well, why can they do it and we can't do it? And I think when you're a kid, it's like, why can they climb trees and shout, and boys being boys, and why do we have to keep quiet and behave and be the good girl? And so I was really loud, and I played the trombone because no other girl in the school played the trombone, and had my hair really short and did loads of sport. And a lot of it, was a bit of a screw you to my dad. But it kind of actually was who I was and what I enjoyed being. I mean, me wearing heels, because this is probably a monthly occurrence, and they're filthy, if anyone spotted it. So it's sort of that was me. And then you go into then you grow up and you go into the dating world. And, I was at an all-girls boarding school for 10 years, so and growing up in the Middle East, it was the best chastity belt Dad could have put on me. So so boys came into my radar probably, when I was like 18. Suddenly there was sort of, hormones and dating and fancying boys. And again, it was sort of, and then going to university and live with boys. And I did sports science and was very in the sports world, and lived with 5 rugby players. I don't know how I'm still alive now and that, but... and it was sort of, hang on a minute, they can do what they want sexually, sleep with whoever they want, they were still legends, and girls still wanted to go out with them, even though they had literally shagged a different person every day of the week for a month. They were still absolute heroes, and it was cool. But God forbid, as a girl, you even snogged a stranger on a night out. And, the slut shaming and the guilt in us, there was massive. And I look back at university, and it was like, you could give as many blowjobs as you wanted. As long as you didn't have full-on sex, you were not a slut. And you look at that mentality and go, wow, what the hell? What is so programmed into us that we think that, it's just crazy when you look back on that. So this anger was just this burning of like, well, why can't, they can do it, why can't we? We can't even talk to friends, or where do I go and speak to girlfriends? Can't even speak to girlfriends, because probably a lot of people in this room, even now, you speak to your girlfriends and your best friends about everything and anything, but how many of you really talk about sex with your closest friends? Like really talk about what's going on in your relationships with your best mates and admit things you've been thinking or feeling or wanting to do. It just doesn't really happen. And I went into London, the London World Financial PR, and had a bit of shit with the boss on the harassment side, and complained and was told I'd be a troublemaker if I complained properly. And did I still want to be working in the city because it was the boys' club and everyone knew everyone? So if I made it official, then I might not get a job somewhere else. And so, I just sort of left. And at the same time, I left really quietly, which I should never have done, but and ran off to the Caribbean, actually, to be a personal trainer, but then decided to grow up and come back. And came back and running away to an island in the middle of nowhere. It was not helpful. And came back and was out and about. I went to entertainment PR, and I was out and about in London with a set that everyone's probably heard of in the stream, the Primrose Hill Posse, and I saw the most sexually confident women in this crowd who were doing what they wanted, with who they wanted, whether it was women, whether it was men, whatever. And we were all at a wedding in Ibiza together for sort of 3 days, hadn't slept. And someone phoned in who hadn't been at the wedding and said, "Are you guys just sat around killing kittens at the moment?" And I went, "That's it. That is it. That is the name. That's what I'm going to do. I want to create a world that flips the norm on its head, where women are in control, they make the first moves, where they can talk about sex and anything to do with it the same way men do, and it's accepted and a safe space online and offline for women to own their sexuality and to talk about it and act on it or not act on it, and it's their space and our space." And that's sort of what I decided to do in 2005, age 25. And just went, yeah, sod it, and obviously had a lot of backlash. But here we are. The joke's still going.
It's amazing. I mean, it's fascinating then. I mean, you raised so many things there, which I think are really worth sort of deeper diving into, is that the whole thing about attitudes, it's something that we've talked a lot about at Really Help the Club, on lots of other subjects around that kind of patriarchal society. We've had that this morning with, financial freedom, how, our structure, our society is just set up for a man's world. And it's not that you want to do the men down. We just want equality. We just want to be treated the same. And so I guess, what's really interesting, you have that idea. There was this sort of, this tomboy, this kind of rebel in you sort of from, young growing up. And you launched Killing Kittens, over 20 years ago. You put your big girl pants on. It's something that, again, we talk about taking that leap, about starting a business, growing a business. It's one thing to have the idea. It's an incredible thing to actually have the bravery and have the courage to actually do it. And you kicked down that door of prejudice, that door of misogyny. I haven't come across anyone like you that has done something like that. I mean, I think it is just so incredible. It's groundbreaking. But you brought sex, you brought desire out of the closet. And I guess in that sort of 20 years, how do you think attitudes have changed towards sex, talking about sex, as you say? And what do you think Killing Kittens has done to help shape that conversation?
I think on the attitudes, and it's gone sort of hand in hand with, what the previous speakers know about with the finances and on that planning side, that independence. I think what's come with financial independence for women then comes a bit of a screw you. Actually, if I've got power over my money and I'm earning, then I don't have to sit in a shit relationship. I don't have to put up with this. I don't have to get married. I don't have to have children. I don't have to do all these things that we've been messaged, into our bones growing up. Actually, suddenly, we don't have to be doing any of it. We don't have to see success in the same way that the patriarchal definition of success is earning as much money as possible and living in massive houses. That, to most women, we're so programmed that that's success as well. It's sometimes when I say to people, well, what is success for you as women? It's very different a lot of times. So we no longer have to or are expected to do what, women 20, 30 years ago you were expected to do. And I think what's come with that independence, which mainly is our financial independence, because we can stand on our own 2 feet and we're allowed to stand on our own 2 feet, comes hand in hand with suddenly, actually, I'm not totally straight. I'm bisexual. I'm actually, I think I'm in love with my best friend, and we've been, of 20 years. We're seeing so much of that happening at the moment. Women in their 40s who have come out of straight marriages, going into same-sex relationships, and it's huge. So again, on that front, it's if I call it bedroom to boardroom type thing, or boardroom to bedroom. This thing is coming out for the first time. If we can think about our finances, then for the first time we're allowed to have a thought process on what we want in the bedroom and what we selfishly want in the bedroom. And it's not about a penis and a vagina and a man coming and that's what sex is and we're taught about that from school. It's actually female pleasure. Who knew it existed? It kind of, you said about, signing checks, or getting credit cards or something in 1975. It was about that point that the clitoris was fully discovered, as being a thing of pleasure. So, female pleasure hasn't been around that long either. It's crazy on that front. So, yeah, it's that freedom to suddenly, what we've seen a massive change is it's not as binary as it was. It's, 1,000 shades of grey and 1,000 shades of sexuality, and there's so much. It's education. It's, we spend millions. People in here, we've spoken about, the well-being, physical well-being, financial well-being, mental well-being, but how many of you in here actually spend a penny on sexual well-being and sexual education? Because that's your core. We're animals. And your sexuality is your core. It's what's firing inside you, and all your desires, the subliminal messaging you get into life is fired by your sexual core. And if you are not looking after that or investing in that and being aware of what's making you tick in that area, or what you might like, or all these things, then how can you go out and, you can have the best personal trainer, you can have the best psychologist, you can, but if you're not looking after that bit, then everything else is just sort of, wallpaper. Covering, I don't know if you guys are the first panel, you're all bloody brilliant. Agree? It's like that bit on the end just, needs firing up. So that's the change is, and what has been lovely seeing is that what was very taboo 19 years ago and people didn't talk about coming to a Killing Kittens party or being a KK member, I've heard loads of people, I've had a few people in here already come up and go, I've been coming to your party for years. I'm not going to name any names.
We're not going to take a poll unless anyone wants to. There's a revolution coming. I mean, we were very early talking about the menopause, and I remember when we were talking about that, and we used to talk about vaginal atrophy and stuff like that, and it was really difficult, wasn't it? And then suddenly everyone's talking about it, and I hope that this revolution is coming, because it is that last taboo, and it's that classic thing without being too generalised, and certainly this is not meant to offend any of your men in the room. It's as if women talk about everything except for finance and about sex, and men, I think, talk about everything except for what's important.
Yeah, they talk about those two things. No, they talk about finance.
Can I just, and I'm not just looking straight at you, Nick, or any other men in the room, but this is going out on video, but who cares? But it's sort of true without being too, of course, everyone's sort of, as you say, 1,000 shades of grey, just to, try and dig that hole even deeper. But it does feel like there's a revolution that is either started or it's coming. And it's coming with that sense of empowerment, that sense of you are getting your stuff together, you are in control, women are becoming in control of the financial world. And it matters, because I think it is empowering, and, and it's a long, long time overdue. So I guess sort of building on some of the conversations of earlier on, and especially what sort of Pam was talking about in terms of women and midlife and libido, loads of talk in the media, which, some of the time it says, oh, libido drops, people are having less sex, and then you see another article that says, oh, women are more adventurous in midlife and they're having more sex and their libido goes through the roof. So what are you seeing at Killing Kittens, and what's the reality? Let's have the the evidence.
I think it's dangerous what is put in the press to do with menopause and perimenopause. I mean, I'm 46, and the last year I've finally got my shit together in the last year. But for like 2 years, I was like, I've got 3 kids under 10 as well, and it was like COVID, and I was like, I didn't know arse from elbow of what feeling was coming from what, and this intense paranoia as well, which wasn't me. Is my business is going to be stolen. I'm like, what the fuck? It's like, it's the thoughts that were going on, and the dark places, and the brain fog, and the libido, and but then you're told, the blood tests, but my hormones were fine on the blood test. And luckily, it took a friend of mine who's a private doctor to write me a letter, and I went, hand the drugs over now. And and I think sorry, what was the question? Because my brain goes off on one. High-functioning ADHD brain, I literally will go down there.
This is the killer question. Are women having more or less sex in midlife?
Okay, on that front.
Okay. Is their libido going up or down? This is. You're obviously not taking quite enough HRT because the memory's gone a bit. But
I end up in supermarkets.
So we need to know. We need to know, without having to take a poll, are we having more or less sex in midlife?
I think, again, sorry, I remember where I was. The generalisation of your libido drops. Some people it goes through the roof. Some people it completely dries up. It's such a personal stage, and it's a decade. And that's the thing, what people don't realise as well. A lot of women think it's just this 1 year menopause, and actually, I describe it a bit like childbirth for anyone that has gone through that. In here, it's like it's not the actual childbirth; it's the labour that is the bitch. It's the actual 20 minutes, 15 minutes of active birth. Yeah, it can be painful, but it's the 48 hours of labour that kills you. And no one really speaks about that bit. They talk about the birth. And in the same way, it's like you talk about the menopause, you don't talk about the 10 years of symptoms. That there's a reason why. Well, you'll see it, and divorce is the average age is something like 46, 47 for women. The average age of women dropping out of work is like mid-late 40s. It's no one links it all together. And on going back to the sex part as well, hence the divorce part. Actually, it's a lot of divorces happen because you stop having sex, you stop communicating, and then someone has an affair, and it doesn't have to happen. And if you could just communicate, if you are just both sides aware, it's like I've got absolutely no filter. So my husband is fully aware, and he calls it all the black toads in the room. It's like, or I just take myself away for like some days in a month. I'm like, or I'll find chocolate in the fridge because he knows that it's about to happen that monthly ago. And it's got worse as I've got older. I never used to have PMT. Now someone will die for like 5 days a month. So it's that communicating part and the awareness part, and it's on the sex front that I can't really answer the question of has it gone up or down, because it's such a unique experience for everyone. And I know, so I've got some friends that it's gone through the roof. Generally, on the whole, it goes down. Your libido drops in your 40s massively, but the external pressures of life go up in your 40s. So pinpointing what is making what happen and libido drop, because at the end of the day, our biggest sex organ as women is our brain. So if we're not feeling respected or listened to, I think listened to is a big one, and we start feeling resentful, which is so easy to get in a rut of resentfulness. I think in the first planet is that where, I can't remember what the quote was, I think Pam said it, that the way you, about the story or where you see the story, or I can't remember what it was. What was it? On the spot. It was like, it was something.
And you thought you could relax.
The story you tell, is the story you live. Exactly. So if in your brain you start resenting, it's very easy to spiral into every time you see your husband, you see the worst. And I'm very conscious of it, and it's something I try and do all the time. It's like, it's remind myself of a good thing. Or suddenly go, well, actually, I've got this going on in my life, so actually I'm the one being a bitch, and I'm resentful, and I laugh at him. I'm like, I resent the fact the world is set up for you, and you can go. I have to schedule a shit. I have to, if I have to pay for, if I want to see my mates, I'm planning the childcare. It's like he just goes off to hockey 3 times a week and 1 day at the weekends, and but it's not his fault, and that's one of the things I always say in my. It's not his fault that's just. And it's it's made him step up. as well, because it's that communicating. Because I think the other thing is we love sitting as women in martyrhood of being, you know, and whinging to our mates. And sometimes I'll sit there with girlfriends and go, have you actually said anything? Have you had a conversation? Have you communicated? Because he's probably not aware. And I love men, but you're quite simple creatures in a nice way. I'm looking at you.
She said that. I didn't say that.
I don't mean it in a I don't mean it in a nasty way. I'd love to be we're like our brains are like a plate of wet spaghetti. You kind of, the spaghetti is all over the place. You don't know which end is what. Men are more like an ice cube tray. And they're like, you know, they're in this cube and they're in this cube, and things don't all, and it's not anyone's fault. And that's the thing. If you expect men's brains to be a plate of spaghetti and think the way we do, and be reading into everything and seeing everything, it's just not. That's what I'm saying. It's like the simple, you know. But when I actually, you know, say to my husband, "I'm not happy. This is going on," he goes, "Oh shit, sorry." Never realised. So that's what I'm talking about. We realise everything. Our brain.
There's that wonderful clip, I don't know if you've seen it on social media, which shows probably how I spend too much of my time just sort of playing on Instagram. But it's that interview on the radio where that woman starts talking about sort of how a woman's brain works, and she sort of, you know, and it could be around, you know, she was about to initiate or she's about to have sex, and suddenly her brain goes, oh God, the children didn't have broccoli for lunch in their lunchbox. That means they won't get into university. That means whatever. Oh, and by the way, I must get my eyebrows booked. You know, I must get, and you go, what did you say again? You know, and on and you see this other woman who's sitting in the radio studio starts crying because she resonates it with totally, and the men are sitting there going, I have no idea what they're talking about. And it is that program, and it is, you talk about Pound quite a lot, about how sort of Apple Macs sort of talking to Dells, as it were, but we don't necessarily talk the same language.
Yeah,
and it's
true.
learning.
And you have to realise you don't talk
language.
the same language. If you expect them to talk your language, then it's never gonna. It's never. That's it. In the same way, there's that. The 5 love languages. And when I discovered that, it actually helped. It's helped me a lot. Because anyone that doesn't do it, Google 5 love languages and have a look, because you all speak a different language. I'm very action. I'm not words. I'm not someone that goes, oh, you're amazing, I love you, you know. I'm like, I do shit. And that's the same in friendships as well. I'm a doer, and I do a lot, and I act a lot. What I realise is my husband needs the reassurance and he needs the words. So he wasn't seeing the actions. He was like resented. He was like, I need more words. And then suddenly I was like, you're too needy. And, you know, and he wasn't seeing that actually, me organising his whole life and allowing him to do all his hockey and do everything. And his routine hasn't changed in our entire relationship, even with 3 kids. That was my love language. And I think that's another thing. It's that it's the awareness. You need to be aware of how the other person operates and not assume that they are thinking what you're thinking and seeing what you're seeing. And I think that's where we get ourselves into a lot of trouble.
Completely agree. I think we could talk about that forever. Let's talk a bit about desire and talk about reigniting desire. And I've heard you talk about this, that challenge we have as mothers, and you've sort of started to allude to it there, how we wear so many hats. One moment we've got a mother's hat on, the next minute we are busy, running around our household, or we're running a business, or we're just juggling. Is how do you reignite that sense of desire in a long-term relationship? And how do we have those conversations that allow us to recalibrate, as Pam has talked about? What do you think?
I think it's that, you have to get out of autopilot. I think it's very easy to drive along in autopilot of your relationship, especially when kids are in the mix, and you just, you kind of just float past each other. And I think you have to get out of that and put the car into manual, and select the gears and just go out of your way and little things. And it's really simple. It's like how many people, we can get in a rut and, for 2 months we haven't been out on a date night. For a lot of people, they haven't been on a date night for years. And that's a really easy one to make that effort, which doesn't involve much effort. And even when, we've been like counting pennies, it's we've had a babysitter in for 2 hours and we've taken a bottle of wine and we live on the river and we go and sit on a park bench. It's sort of, and that's what I've said, Dim, as well, is that when you have all the hats, again, with our brains being our biggest sex organ, is that you need to switch the brain off. we've all been there when we've been lying there going through our to-do list, and suddenly you have to force your brain back into, sexual wife, sexual being kind of thing, and then it goes back off on a do list. It's like, it's impossible sometimes, but it's that just sort of and I've said it to James, my husband, it's like, you know, sometimes he used to, he doesn't anymore, kind of come in, we've been fighting kids, going to bed, and then he'll come upstairs and go, so, and I'm like, no, absolutely not. I don't want anyone touching me, breathing on me, looking at me, nothing. But I've said to him, all it will take is, you know, for him to sort of babysitter, as I said, for like 2 hours, or we go down to the pub, and all it takes is me walking into the pub and drinking 1 glass of wine, and suddenly I'm in hot wife mode. And I'm out of mum mode and out of work mode. And I think that's it. It's just, I think you can end up in that rut of expecting them to fix it. And it becomes their fault. And the resentment, and you kind of have to take control of it. And everything, all the talks today, is like taking control and you have the power, and that includes in the bedroom. You know, actually, women are very powerful beings across everything, and especially in the bedroom. And so why do we sit there and let them have the power on that front? So there's an amazing book called Mind the Gap. I don't know if you've come. It's it's really good. And that's about sort of relationship, sort of proofing your love lives and the desire. Because what's very interesting, as animals, women, we lose desire much quicker than men, which you'd think is the other way around, but society with affairs and stuff, but society has kept us, and the messaging and that guilt and that sense of we need to stay with our husbands, it stops us actually acting on it. So it's the, you know, the science of sex is the one science that actually isn't practiced the way the science says. It's actually polar opposite. So if you looked at that, you know, we drop desire very quickly. So then, I think it's about 18 months or something. It's not long. So then it becomes a, you know, relationship and partnerships, and having to make an effort and having to do the little things, and it's little things like, you know, me and my husband both work from home, but he'll just send me the odd one-liner text message. We'll be in different rooms because I can't sit in the same room as him. That's just too much. So yeah, or little notes, or it's just really little things that people can do that just turns it around. But mainly it's having the conversations. And we found, you know, we had a big increase in members sign up during lockdown. And I always said that lockdown was going to make or break relationships. It was either going to, because it was the first time people had to sit there, couldn't go anywhere, and look at each other and go, I'm with this person. And and it would either be instant divorce, or actually people were sitting there going, well, we've never really had conversations, and we haven't got anything else to do, so maybe we should talk about this, and I've actually had a fantasy about this and thought about that. And so we had a load of people signing up because for the first time ever they'd had conversations in lockdown and realised that they had both been thinking the same things, of trying things, and, you know, and we do a lot of online workshops. So, you know, it's not about, you know, if you read the Daily Mail, you think everyone's just walking into our events and just shagging anything that moves, but actually it's such a very, it doesn't happen. I mean, a lot of sex does happen, but that's not it. You know, the whole online side, we do a lot of workshops and masterclasses and couples workshops, and the art of communication to tantric to everything, beginner's guide to BDSM, because there's been a lot of sort of interest in that kind of world, just sort of the vanilla side of it. So yeah, it's sort of, we've seen a big increase on that side, and then we've seen a massive increase this year, in the last 2 years, of the midlife women, and that the rise of women coming out of relationships. You know, husbands walked out, gone off with younger models because that's what happens, that, or coming out of abusive relationships or arranged marriages, or women who have literally, you hit 40 in their late 40s and realise babies are now off the table. That's it, and suddenly a switch goes, and it's sort of, they've got one life and can get out of that biological clock and their guilt of, everyone wants me to have babies and I should be having babies, or they haven't been able to have babies. Either way, there's, you know, it's a very muddled, you know, in that up until you're about 40, the messaging of you should have babies, and some people don't want to, some people can't, realise they can't. So we're seeing that midlife women of, it's that taking control and having the power and going, well, actually, we're sexual beings, so why can't we just go and have sex with whoever we want to have sex when we want it? Why do we feel guilty?
So on that note, let's talk about a killing kitten party. And you said that met a few people who have been to one. I'm sure that everybody is interested to know what happens at a killing kitten party, even if they might not admit it. So you get up to about 800 people, I think, even attending one of your parties. So I guess 2 questions. What's the draw? And what can people expect? And how would you encourage someone to have the courage to come to one? Because I think there's a huge curiosity, there's a huge fascination, but actually, again, like lots of things, to take the leap. So what would you expect from a killing kitten party?
Everyone has to be members, and only women can be members. But you can get a member can buy a couple's ticket and invite a man along, or invite another woman along. So yeah, it's probably 67% women, and everyone are members of the online community. So everyone's been vetted, and they tend to be cocktail dressed, black tie, and we take over different sort of country mansions or big venues in London. And I always say it's like turning up to like a private party and where the wheels then fall off. There's a sense of, people have their expectations. So they're masks as well, so everyone has to wear masks. And basically, they're massive parties. We have the DJs, we have performers, but what we also have is what we call playrooms. So I have friends, whenever I go to some of the, the bigger ones, but I go with a group of friends, and I've taken a lot of school mums and school couples, and we live in a little village. It's a little Church of England primary school, so you can imagine. I've taken parents along, and they love it. And a lot of the single mums, none of them have got involved, none of them taken clothes off. They just have said they love the atmosphere and they love the energy, and they've met really amazing people and they have amazing conversations. And probably 50-60% of the people that come to an event don't take their clothes off, don't get involved, because you have to wander off like sort of upstairs, and then you can wander into the playrooms, and then you might, people will be in there sort of at it or doing. But we have couples who just want to stick together, and it's like a really supercharged date night, and it's just them. They or they'll come out and they don't do anything. Some couples get involved, some don't. We get a lot of there's a lot of the bisexual element when it comes to women, and there's a lot within couples. There's a lot of that. So it's the space where the women can explore that side. So the husbands are like, we know we're very happily married, but there's a big sort of part of their women, their wives' life and brain and desires that is the bi part, which is what we're saying more and more on that front. So and that's it really. There are the playrooms there if you want. If you get rid of the playrooms, then actually it's just a massive party and the dance floor. And often when I'll go and we sit downstairs, sometimes I'll leave at 2 a.m. and I haven't seen one naked person, because I haven't wandered. You see a lot of women. A lot of women they come and they just get unchanged, get undressed into their lingerie, and they just love dancing on the dance floor, and that's enough. And they just feel really empowered, and it's every shape and size and age, and they realise that, and that's the bit that actually a lot of women love about it, is that they'll leave just supercharged on that front. So yeah, to me, and right from day one, it's sort of, I wanted to create that safe space for women to feel safe and empowered. And I always said sex was the byproduct, because when you make women feel empowered and charged and confident like that, then they will go sort of, actually, we've got desires and we want to have sex. And so it's sort of, even though the label is there on the sex party front, it's, to me and my team, it's not the part we focus on. The whole business is around everything else, and then sex is the byproduct.
Well, I think it ties in so well with everything else we're talking about here, about freedom, that freedom of choice, isn't it? And that sense of liberation. So moving on slightly, you're a very successful entrepreneur. You champion female businesses. I belong to a WhatsApp group with Emma, and you set up, it's probably, I don't know, about 100 of us or 200 of us in it or something. You are in there every single day promoting...
Told you about my brain.
Yes, but promoting other people, celebrating other women, celebrating charity, celebrating, rising up by lifting others. And I think it is fascinating to watch, how busy you are, but you're also a mum of 3. I know you're PTA head, as if that wasn't enough.
Imagine that, chair of the PTA.
And
again, drunk in lockdown, that one happened.
Exactly. And you're one of those people where you go to something, you just can't not say yes. And you look amazing. So I guess the other question is sort of going through everyone's head is, how on earth does she do it? How does she balance this life? How do you balance your priorities?
You said it, I call it being unapologetically selfish, and that's it. It's I put the oxygen mask on, and I'm like, if I'm not happy, no one around me is going to be happy. I'm the core of our household, and if mummy's not happy, it's that happy wife, happy life, isn't it? So it's I make a point of of going away. With friends for a night. I make a point of going out in, probably every couple of weeks. I'm out in London meeting friends out. I'll go away for a week every year to this juice retreat, which I love doing. And I have done since my kids are 6, 8, and 10, and I've done that since they were 2 well probably since they were tiny. But I think also it's having teams around, the whole it takes a village. If you try and do everything, you can't. I could go away for 2 months and it wouldn't affect my business. I've got a great team and I trust them, and often they tell me to fuck off. In all honesty, if I try and interfere, which I don't regularly at all. So they don't need me. And, and I've built a village, around the kids and babies that from day one, because also I had them all when working. I've never taken a day of maternity leave. I haven't been able to take a day of maternity leave. So I've had to trust other people to help me look after my babies and my partner. And I've also, never given him an inch. He's had to, we're partners. So, and that's it. And I've said, when we, I always say 2 out of 3 weren't planned out of our kids. And the first one, and the second one, it's because I didn't want an only child. And so it's, and that was when I was 36, 38 and 40. So I think, because I was older, I was so stuck in my ways and we say selfish, I think, as women, as if it's a bad thing. And it's like me sitting and going and being, I'm selfish. It's like, I sound like a right twat, or, judgment, she's saying she's selfish. But I think it's the only way you can, you can do it. And so, so the teams at work, teams in the village with the kids. And I prioritise me. So I will do the school run and I'll hit the gym. And, I love my Pilates. It's sort of, that I've been doing for like 25 years. It's sort of and then also the sisterhood, at the same time, the friendship group. So, that group became a sisterhood I launched 20 years ago. And that was part of the sports thing of I wanted to do crazy challenges, but I didn't want to do it on my own. So again, it was a kind of, I'm going to take women to do these ultra events, sports events that are very men's dominated and go, we'll do it too and we'll look good doing it. So, the first one I think was racing across the English Channel in a dragon boat with racing a load of guys who said, we're the brotherhood and we're racing across. And again, another drunk moment of, fuck it, I'm going to launch the sisterhood and we'll race you across that. And it's just, that joke's still going as well. So there's a lot of, drunk jokes that keep going. Theme here. So that again, I've always had, and I had crappy relationships pre-35 and abusive ones as well, but I had my girls. I had the sisterhood, and you have to foster those relationships. You can't sit there and go, well, where are all my friends? If you haven't put the time and energy into the friendships, and the same with the kids. I put the time and energy into, one of my littlest, his godmother happens to be their old nursery manager. That tells you how much babysitting she did for us. And, she was really ill and, back when she was about 4 months old, and the nursery manager ended up being in the hospital for 48 hours with her because James was off on a hockey thing. I had to be in Venice on a work thing. We had 2 other kids. We knew she was fine, but it was that I had to trust the nursery manager to go and sit in the Evelina for 48 hours. So it's that's how, that's sort of how I've done it. And I think but the bottom line of that and the underlying message in that is being selfish and putting yourself first.
Well, it's something we're going to talk about in the last session about rewriting the narrative. And I think that something that's come out from this morning as well around changing the stories that we tell ourselves, and that selfish isn't necessarily a negative word. It is putting that oxygen mask on. It is looking after ourselves, because that does allow us to be our best version of ourselves and to take care of those who matter to us. So you talked a bit about team. Now, you don't build a business like Killing Kittens without a team around you, but also without getting funding. Can you talk about, I guess, what's been the biggest help in allowing you to launch, grow and drive your business?
I mean, to be honest, the media, when you do a business that we've got, and funding, I mean, we couldn't call it Killing Kittens Limited for about 8 years because no bank would give us a bank account because of cruelty to animals. So it was, it was Aphrodite Associates Limited for we traded us. So it hasn't been the easiest, and even now we don't. You know, computer says no to most bits of funding. So. So you know, the way we, and also advertising, we can't do the Google, well, we can now because we split this, so the whole online world is called WeRx, Wax. It's a big social dating app, and it's the home to the KK community, and it's the home to loads of other communities. And for the first time we split the businesses at the beginning of last year, so the tech's in one area. So for the first time ever, now we've been approved for Google ads and Meta ads, and it's a whole game changer on that front. And Killing Kittens is, you know, a separate business. So we've just had to be it. But again, it's that, you know, when the computer says no, we're like, well, we'll find a way. It's like, watch me. It's sort of there's the amount, I call it like blowtorching doors open, because every door is shut for every aspect of our business, whether it's insurance, whether it's funding, online payment systems, everything. It's all the nature of your business, and raising money. It's all, we can't be seen to be investing, and it. So that, yeah, it's an ongoing battle. And I think the way it's been done, my background was PR, so right at the beginning it was quite easy. I had a lot of fun spinning things and smoke and mirrors, and yeah, sort of on that front. And that's kind of been the way it's sort of, the narrative has kept going. The media, because it's women and it's sex, again, it's sort of, for the first time, that's when I knew right back at the beginning that there was something there and something brewing. And because suddenly, within a month of launching, I had big editors phoning, and it wasn't a minion. It wasn't, you know, someone who just started in journalism and been there 4 months. It was the Sunday Times Style magazine editor phoning, wanting exclusives, wanting, because they all, I think, and that, the more we had that, we had a lot in the first 6 months. And I was like, no, this is happening. This society is changing. We are on the front of helping it happen, and that fired to keep going. So it's, yeah. So to start with, I mean, we did our first financial raise in 2018. So what's that? 13 years of not funding, of just it kind of doing itself. But that happened because I knew we needed to go big or go home on the tech side. Before sort of Trump had come in, the Me Too movement had just happened, and I wanted to find a business partner who knew the tech side, that savvy side of it, because I hate digital and I hate tech, which is ironic, given that's the world I live in now. And yeah, so that's when the first funding happened. But again, on that front, we were going to these, you know, investors and stuff, and the amount of conversations, and we'd have a lot of meetings, but I just realised it was the boy club wanting to talk sex at 10 in the morning in a city boardroom and ask really inappropriate questions. And so, and then we had a whole big community, so we quite quickly thought, well, actually, we want to go down the crowd route. And I said, because actually we've got so many female members, I'd like someone to give a tenner and feel like they were part of it and part owned it. And so I think we've got about 2,500 shareholders, and most of them have come through Cedars when we've done. We're about to start another one raised now, but most of on that front. So that's where we've got the funding. It's probably 90% via sort of members and advocacy type. I mean, in the next year we'll probably have to have bigger conversations, but it's tricky.
No, it's seriously impressive. When you talk about Maura talked about the pension gap, and of course there is a VC gap as well. So let's just talk a little bit about judgment, because there you are. You talked about there you were in the tabloids, in the press, talked about and used to your advantage. But you're also PTA head. You get, talked about as being, at school, Kate Middleton, etc. But Killing Kittens gets described quite often in the press as these high-end sex parties, and so there's a sense of judgment sometimes in that commentary. How do you cope with that, and how do you deal with that? I
think I learned very quickly, probably in the first year, to never read the Daily Mail comments, I stopped reading them, and I think I always say that it's such a fire in my belly that, as I said, I've had it all my life. And wanting to change the world and that whole people going, well, that's just how it is. How many things in life do we get to, well, it's just how it is. Don't rock the boat. And I'm like, well, if we all sat there in this, it's just how it is, and nothing would ever change in the world. So I think because it's so in me, every bone in my body lives and breathes it, that it's not about me. So it's about the bigger picture, it's about the message, it's about the changes. So actually I don't take it personally because it's got nothing to do with me. I'm just this, I just talk the talk and actually it's like having an invisible force field of I've got very, close friends, I've got a great family, and they know me. And the real me, and they know the why. So does it really matter what anyone else, someone who lives in the arse end of Middle Earth, who's reading the Daily Mail, thinks about me and decides to comment on it? It's like, I don't care, and I'm not even gonna give it a second. I mean, I don't get me wrong, there are times when you'll hear something or read something and I'm not a robot, and something will get through, but I'm quite quick to sort of spin it around and spit it back out again. And I think that's it. I think I've just developed the tools to do that, and I do it without thinking. And I think any hypnotherapist, CBT, NLP practitioner in the room, you do that with clients and of reprogramming them and the message, and you hear the message, but it's how you act on it. That the more you then train yourself, that's just how it is. So and actually and humour. No shit. Humour kind of is the way so much of it's turned around, and it's sex and it's funny. And so often when something's really abusive, I'll just start laughing. And friends will look at me and go, but that's really abusive. I'm like, yeah, but it says more about them and them not being happy. And there's obviously, and the standing joke in our office is, well, they obviously need a good shag. Because ultimately, actually, that's what it comes down to a lot of the time. If they're not happy in the bedroom, then they're projecting them being miserable, they're projecting. And again, with school, I hear stuff, in the playground. And someone said the other day, it was like, I really like you. And it's like, I hear stuff about you all the time. And I'm thinking, do you really think that's helpful? Telling me that you hear stuff about me all the time. But she's trying to say it in a compliment that she really likes me, but by telling me that she's also hearing stuff about me all the time. And so I don't say anything, but you kind of have to laugh. You have to laugh it off. And I thought I would have been sacked from the PTA, 4 years ago, but I'm still going.
Fantastic, thank you. So my last question, and I know that lots of people are going to want to come up and chat to you over lunch. I do know you can't stay that long.
I've got to take 10 8-year-olds to Wembley to the football on my
There you go. There you go. That multitasking mum. But I want to, this is sort of with that kind of that parent hat on, and many people in the room will be parents, have young children or young adult children, is to talk about the taboo and to talk about how you talk about sex with children, not just what we're learning at school, but the whole area of consent, desire, and because you feel that conversation is changing.
Yeah.
And again, as parents, we know what we grew up with, but actually, how do you talk to your children? You've got children who are obviously 10 and under, but it's I think again it's another world that's really hard to navigate.
I always say that I'll never lie. So that's the thing. I think this making up stuff to your kids, this, the stork just came down and dropped a baby from the sky, or, or calling the other thing, it's, my 6-year-old has a very strong vagina, and the word, and I think she uses it a bit too much sometimes, but, she played I Spy the other day and sat there and went, Via, you've all got one, she said to this group of teenage girls. She's 6. But, you know, it's a word. At the end of the day, it's a word. And a lot of psychologists and sex therapists, you know, who deal with, you know, rape and sexual abuse say, actually, the kids that know exactly what the body part is, it's much easier to get out what's happened to them than the ones who call it a fuzzwaz or your magic place or your, you know, it's the body part. You know, at the end of the day, the body parts. And one of my you know, proudest thing with my son, who was 8, is a couple of years ago, and it's when they started and the teacher came out and said you should be really proud of him, because they were talking about his breasts, and all the boys started laughing, and he swung around and went, it's just the body part. So it's kind of, to me, it's that, it's, you know, it's not inappropriate telling kids the names of, you know, and the real names of things. So to start with, it's that, it's kind of, it's just having age-appropriate conversations when they come up, and not lying about stuff. And that, because at the end of the day, I would rather have kids that feel they can come and speak to me about anything than kids who are, you know, going to go and get pregnant, you know, shag behind some tree somewhere, I haven't got a clue. Girls who think that it's all about the boys and that that's how they're meant to behave, and boys who are watching loads of porn who think that that's how girls are meant to behave and that's how you're meant to treat girls. If you're not having the conversations at home, which are really awkward, they're really awkward, and the kids will be awkward and you'll be awkward, but it's the bigger picture of what do you want, what do you want your kids to grow into, and what kind of adults do you want them to be. And I think when you don't have those conversations, then you're letting the world teach them what they need to be in that department. And that's, you know, as a parent, it's not really a good place to be in.
What an amazing person. What an amazing person.
Interesting.
No, more than interesting. I on that note, I mean, I'd like us all to show appreciation to Emma. I mean, just, you know, for me, I mean, again, my brain is all sort of going off on tangents and things, but happy wife, happy life. Isn't that what we all kind of, you know, aspire to? So, Emma Sayle, thank you very much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.